Hey guys, today we're going to do a tutorial covering Postgres databases. So I'm going to create a new T3 app. It's like nextjs TypeScript. We're going to add kysely for the database connection, and at the end of this you should be able to create a very simple blog. So to just show you, like post title goes in there, and then you can type in like hello world and create the post. Once that's created, get a confirmation message, and on load you'll fetch all the posts and they appear one underneath the other. I'll show you some extra things later on, like how to automatically show the latest data when posting, all kinds of stuff. But yeah, let's get started. So we're going to start off in a blank folder and do pnpm create t3 app latest. Just check my other tutorials and you should be able to catch up to here relatively quickly. Just going to download some content quickly. Let's give it a name. So my demo DB app. We'll use TypeScript. You can switch on Nextauth, Tailwind, trpc. Let's just say yes, yes, yes. Should be done any second. There we go. cd into my demo app, and we're going to just immediately add some dependencies. So add kysely pg for Postgres, the Postgres types, and kysely codegen. Once that's done, let's open up the code editor. And let's see what we've got. Just rerun it. Yeah, it's import 3000. Do a refresh. You should have something like this. So let's quickly clear out just the starter content. So we'll go all the way down there, remove this auth, and we'll just start off with a blank page. The first thing that we want to do is add a button to initialize the database. So that should create our database table with the columns that we need. I think this is the easiest way to show you how it works. There's many ways you can automatically run this. Generally, you would only run it once, especially when learning. We'll create some endpoints for, let's go into the example router. Let's rename hello to initdb. For now, just a public procedure is fine. And we're going to return here db like a success string, and we'll add the db init script here. Next, we need one to do create a post. Let's also do public procedure. We'll have some input from the browser. Let's create a Zod object. And we are going to have title, which is a string, and content, also a string. And this will be a mutation since you'll click a button to trigger it, right? Queries run on page load. So it's going to be a mutation, an async one. And here we'll create the post and then return the post goes here, like the new one we'll create. Then we need to be able to list the posts. Also public procedure and a query async so, and we'll get the list of posts and basically return that here, and it will be like an array. Okay, so that's kind of our general idea for the API. The next step is to actually find a way to host the database, right? What I found works very well is to go to vercel and go here to storage, something like this. Not sure if you have it on personal accounts. I think you might. But anyway, just click create database, Postgres, continue, accept, choose a name for it. So Metron DB test, something like that. Choose where you want to host it and click create. So once that's done, they'll give you some documentation. Feel free to follow that if you want. And we'll need this connection URL. So just say copy snippet, and we'll jump into the env and create a new one here called database URL. And basically just paste that in there. I'm going to delete this database after this tutorial is recorded, so don't even try to connect to this. One thing that I found was you do need to add one more thing at the end of this URL to make it work, and that is SSL mode require. So just type this in at the end of it, and we should be good to go. Then we need to let the env parser know that to expect this this environmental variable. So add that in there. Also down here where it actually loads it in, like env like so. Okay, so now our connection string will be able to be used by our application. The next thing that we need is for the server to actually make a connection to the database. So let's just create a new folder here, call it db, and I've already got this in another project, so I'm just going to copy it over. Let me copy all three. This will speed things up. So I'll share a GitHub link so you guys can just copy this from there. But essentially this will import kysely, Postgres, our schema, which has our types from our database tables, and our environmental variable for the connection string that we use here to initiate a pool, and that gets plugged into kysely, which connects to our DB schema types. So you get autocomplete for all your data, which is very nice. Then this is what our schema is going to look like, but for now feel free to delete this and just have like a blank DB in there. It's complaining because it's empty, but it's fine. And that gets imported from here, right, and plugged in to our DB. So it exports this DB object, which we'll be able to use now. First thing is we first need to actually create the tables on the database. So to do that, we've got this create script. And I think the best way to do this is just to, actually let's delete this one here. And from our index, we're going to be calling on init, let's say example dot create initdb dot mutate. Use mutation should be. Let's just jump back there. Initdb should be a mutation, right? Let's add our db script in here. Let's grab it. Here you go. And just control dot and import it. So here we get our database connection. Make it async because you have to wait for it to complete. So the first thing it will do is it will create a schema, creates a new table, and you can add your columns. There's lots of variations on this. Just Google for kysely, or even Postgres documentation will help you a lot. One thing that is useful is to do something like that, and let's just import that SQL. Yeah. So that will create a updated at timestamp column and automatically timestamp it if you want to do that. So this is quite a useful way to default to some value. Yeah, but for simplicity I'm going to keep that out. Okay, so create the my app schema, add a table to it, and return success if true. Let's see if that works. So index initdb. Let's see. Sometimes you have to just do a little space or backspace so it refreshes the types. And this is our initdb query. And on the button on click, I want to run that. So we're going to call it mutate. And to pass a blank into it and catch the on success, you can do something like undefined on success data and console.log the data. Otherwise, you can also do something like a pre-block stringify and then take your initdb like so, and that will log it out in the browser. So I'm going to save that, and let's jump back to our app. So hopefully, if everything worked, might have to restart the server, but let's see. So we run initdb, it's running, and we've got success true. Very good. So that should have worked, and now the next thing we want to do is run kysely codegen to automatically populate our types from our database. Okay, so to do that, we need the console. So let's jump back there, and the command, just get it here. I'm going to run kysely codegen. Here we go. So npx to run a script. Then the next one is the package name and the properties or the parameters that we have on kysely codegen is out file, is what file we want to write to. We want to write to source server db schema ts. So when we run that, it will pull our env file, connect to the database, and generate it. It found one table, generated the schema for us, and boom, there we go. So that's how I had it before. And what this will give us now is in our router where we want to create the posts, we'll receive the data in from the browser to the server in the input, like that. We've also got context there to access, like who's the current logged in user, for instance, and so on, by the way. But we're going to use the input, and that will have the title and content that we want to save to the database, and let's add it. So this will be our new post after it's been added. Await db.insert into my app.posts. So you've got autocomplete for your tables, and the values will be the ID is automatically generated from there. No, it's not. Okay, we're going to have to add the ID. Just do a crypto.randomUID, so that will create a nice random identifier. The title will be input.title, and the content will be input.content. And we wanted to return everything after it's been added, so we can pass it through or double check. And we want to execute. So there's a few options here. So execute will just run the command, and it you'll see on like selects when you try to get data, sometimes this will show as a possible undefined. When finding one entry and you don't want this to be an array, you see this is a list, you can say take first, so that will just take the first entry, and you see then it's a possible undefined. Or throw would then throw an error here if it couldn't get a response, right, or at least some data. That way you get quite nice clean typing coming out. So we're just going to return our new post like that. Then, so that's to add the post. We're going to have to check if it's actually working. So let's do the list posts as well. So this would be our posts equals db.select from the sum table. We're going to select all, like all the columns, all the fields. You can also do select and then an array and choose like, oh, you just want the ID and the title, for instance. Just do all dot, and you can do where, and that would be for like searching. So if you want to find a specific one by its ID or title, that's how you would do it. The syntax to do that is, let me just get it on a new line, is something like title equals, and there's a whole bunch of comparator options here. So you can do like larger than for numbers or equals, and then this would be just like some variable name like input.title, for instance, or input.id. This you use quite a lot, like where ID is the ID that you pass in from input up there, z.object ID string. Okay, but we're not going to search now, we're just going to execute. So that should give us a list of posts, and we'll just return it like that, or you can do like that, or like that, if you wanted to. I quite like doing it this way, because in the future you might decide that you want to return the posts, but also like users and favorites and all kinds of stuff. That way you can just add them in here without having to refactor a whole bunch of code. In any case, so that would give us our list of data, and we could just clear out the code that we don't need anymore. So ESLint is happy. Then in the front end, because we've only got that at the moment, let's list our posts, even though there's nothing. Let's see if we can get the empty list and then add one and see if it appears. So list posts equals api.example.list posts dot use query, and let's just pop that into the JSON stringify and make sure our server is running. App dev to run it. To refresh. Cool, so it's fetching, it received 0 entries. And now we just need like a way to type in some content and then click a button to send it off to the server. So I've already covered something like this before in another tutorial, so I'm going to just copy across some code and quickly explain it. So here's a component. Let's make a folder of components. New post form.ts x that. Let's do export and import use state, and it's called import API example.createPost.use mutation. That. So this is the API endpoint we'll use to create the post. This is pretty simple. It's just a title input where the value of the input is what's in the state. We started off with an empty string. When the input box changes, we update the value in the title state. And that's it for title. Same thing with the content. It's just a text area for multi-line. And then we've got a button where on click it runs this create post API endpoint, and it sends off the title and the content. And we're using the is success, but you can do like is loading, all this stuff, or is error to display if something went wrong. I think what's going to be useful now is just do a JSON stringify here as well, so you can see the full response, and import this component to our page. Like this. So we've got our title input form like that, and create post, and the output of the create post endpoint, and below this we've got our raw output from our list of posts. So let's see if this works. So I'm going to call this hello world, and then this is my first post, something like that. Create. And we've got an ID, and it looks like it worked. And to trigger the list of posts to work, to load the latest, let's just do a refresh for now. There it is. So we can loop over the posts to display like the title in large text, and the content. You can run this through something like React Markdown to give you the nice formatting for lists and paragraphs and images and all that stuff. Maybe even code highlighting if you wanted to put code into your content. But for now, this is fine. And we know that works, so we can remove this from our new post. Cool. Let's loop over our database data. So on our landing page, we get the list, and we'll just loop over it. So let's do data, and it might still be loading, so you have to do a question mark because it's possibly undefined. Now when it does load, this re-triggers and then it can actually map over. Let's see, posts.map, and this would be a individual post, or you can just make it p post, it's fine, div. And when you're looping over data, it's important to have a key. You can see it's saying missing key. So add a key property, and this needs to be a unique number or unique string. So we've got IDs that we've generated exactly for this reason. And let's show the post content. So we've got our title, post.title, and a paragraph for our post.content. Let's make the title just a little bit bigger. Text to XL, font bold, something like that. And just style the background for our posts, because we worked hard on it. Let's do blue 500, text white, some padding around it, something like that. Cool, so here's our post, and what I want to quickly, before we do anything further, it would be nice when we click create post that it will automatically list our new posts in there. So there's a whole bunch of ways to do that, but what I found is the easiest is if you grab your query to list the posts, and we'll put that in our form. Now we can say when this mutation was successful, so on success, then we can say list posts dot refetch, and you have to just do a catch error, because it's an async task. With the new ESLint, it's kind of strict. You have to at least handle the error somehow. In any case, that should do it. So let's say second post. Hello, hope this works. Create post, and did it not work? Let's see. Refresh. It did work, but it didn't refresh our posts. That's interesting. Let's try one more. There we go. Maybe just a refresh got it working. And just one more for blah 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 post. There, it works. Okay, so that is essentially it for now. Have fun.